Nation.
Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Go. This is what we do and why we do it, baby. We rollin'!
Covering MMA from all over the world, this is the premier stop for all your combat sports needs. MMA Junkie Radio, the only show broadcasting live from the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. The lights are on and the mics are hot. It's time to get your MMA fix, junkies. Take it away, Big John.
Gorgeous George and Goes, are you ready? Junkie Nation, are you ready? Well, let's get it on.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Racing Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes, our ace co-host. To my left, it's the fight analyst Dan Tom. Back east producing Jumbo Josh. Can't wait to get started. UFC 235 took place this past Saturday, and we're going to unpack it and break it down, rip it up into shreds, and then piece it all back together and then file it away. I don't know if we can do it all in one day because there's tons to talk about. 2 title fights took place on Saturday. We have a new world champion. We had the typical show with a referee or judge controversy. In this case, it was a referee controversy. 17 ranked fighters fought on Saturday night. New stars were made, and by that I mean fighters that we all know are good, but I think they took that next step, i.e., for example, Zabit, Magomed Sharapov. There's many of them, but
Johnny
I'm just
Walker.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm just gonna try and run through kind of the highlights there. Of course, you had outside the octagon controversies, and you know, like I say, tons of action. There was controversies in how you should break up the $50,000 bonuses. You know, certain fighters kind of had hoping that they had done enough to secure one of them bad boys, but you know, there's only 4 of them. They're worded performances. Sometimes there's 4 performances of the nights. Sometimes there's a fight of the night and 2 performances of the night. So, like I said, lots to talk about. Now, listen up closely, and I'll repeat this a few times throughout the show. We are still having a few challenges with getting the show off, you know, here in Mandalay Bay. We believe that we can give you a quality show today, but there's just challenges with the connection between our producer Josh and us. So we're kind of circumventing that and still making it work because we're all pros here, and I think we can pull it off. At least that is the hope. So, no calls today. Tomorrow, I promise you, we will reserve a block of time where we can take calls and you can definitely react, because I know a lot of you are chomping at the bit. But you know what? This is your chance to hit us up on social media. All right? You can hit us up in any of our chats, but I think Twitter's probably the easiest one, or even Facebook. I'll take a look at Facebook. Just communicate with us. We'll take a look anywhere, any which way we can. Hell, if you want to text me, if you have my number, just ask me the damn question or leave your comment there. I'll look at the phone and we'll share it as if you were calling. All right? That's the best we can do. Now let's start unpacking UFC 235, which took place this last Saturday. We'll start right at the top as Jon Jones defended his UFC light heavyweight title versus Anthony Smith. What were your thoughts on that one? Goes lead off.
I mean, do you remember when we talked about how this card has a lot of ranked fighters and the matchups make sense, but maybe the fights just aren't going to play out to be that great just because some styles just nullify others? In this case, I really thought it was going to be a fight where Jon Jones was just going to run away with it. I thought Anthony Smith would have his moments early on, and then by maybe round 2, he would just dispatch of him. Kind of like Anderson Silva and Forrest Griffin. You know, once he got the beat and knew he would have that killer instinct.
Right.
Jon didn't really have that. It was kind of strange. Anthony still remained dangerous in some of the ways he was throwing. He actually landed quite a few punches. But it was similar to that Jon Jones that we saw with OSP, where it just felt like maybe something was a little bit off, something was missing, and I think he was trying to figure it out. But the fight was okay. You know, Jon made his point. He remains probably the top fighter in the world, right?
And probably injury-free.
Yeah.
It looked like he could fight again, and that's what he wants to do. One way to get past all of those PED allegations, all those personal problems he's had, all the suspension time he's had to serve, is to come back and make statement after statement. 70 days ago, he finished Alexander Gustafsson at UFC 229. And here we are at UFC 235, like I said, just over 2 months ago, and he's got another win. And it's barely March. What is it today? March the 4th. So there's still almost a full 10 months left in which he can get 2 more wins and have an epic championship year. Because remember, the champions usually go once a year, twice a year, 3 if you're lucky. 4 hasn't been done in a while, I think. I don't know. But
Tyron.
This can be a pretty big one for Jon Jones. I could see him getting in on Independence, you know, the
4th of July card?
Yeah, International Fight Week, and then even one in the fall/winter. But make no mistake, even though he's looked better, he didn't look horrible. He didn't look bad. He didn't even look average. He just looked dominant over Anthony Smith. So congrats to Jon Jones. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I like the OSP, reference that Goes brought up, because that's what it's kind of in my mind too. I'm not, going to throw any harsh criticisms either way. I think both men fought a good fight for how the fight kind of unfolded. And let's be honest, as good as the fighters are, some fights just tend to unfold that way. Sometimes it's the old proverbial styles make fights. But how about Dana White's comments? I think there might be a little bit of legs to it. Now, of course, there's going to be the tinfoil hat theories out there of why Jon's performances is one way and they're not the other. And I'm sure that will probably still continue on after this fight. But I actually like Dana White's, comments after post-fight saying sometimes Jon maybe fights to his own level. What did you guys do? You guys think there's any truth to that? Does that maybe explain what we saw? Because again, I didn't see anything, quite sure. Did I feel that Jon maybe would usually finish guys when they were in that turtle position, kind of like Anthony Smith. Found himself throughout the fight when he was trying to scramble back to his feet. But aside from that, I think both guys fought, I dare say, well for how the fight was unfolding. I know I'm throwing in a strong caveat there.
Right. So if I just go back like 5 fights.
Okay.
Alexander Gustafsson is top competition, and he waxed him.
Rematch, though, right?
True. Cormier is elite competition, and he had some challenges early on, but then eventually got himself a finish. Well, Vince St. Preux, yeah, that's one where he fought to the level of his competition. It wasn't one of his best moments. He was also coming off a big layoff. But he was also coming off a big layoff from OSP to Daniel Cormier, and he didn't look bad there. Again, early on he did, but eventually he did well. He also had a long layoff between Cormier and Gustafsson. That was also 1 year. So from OSP to DC 1 year, from DC to Alex 1 year. Right. And, again, looked pretty good. So it's kind of hard to go, well, off Cormier 1 to OSP there was a layoff because, again, so there might be something to it, but I mean, if we go back to Teixeira, well, that was a decision. Man, so the thing is, I think this is something that many of us have said. I know I said it. Jon just doesn't have one-punch power. I mean, if he connects in the right spot, of course he can take everyone out. But usually his straight punches come at you. He throws them hard. They hurt. But he's not really, like, clipping the button that'll turn you out because he's not hooking. He's a straight puncher.
Yeah.
Most of the damage is coming from the kicks. I mean, if he was one of those guys that can just hook you, then sure. Now, off the clinch, I didn't see many elbows, but he had to be wary of Smith because Smith's pretty tough off the clinch as well. Yeah. So I just think there was times where he wanted to do stuff, but Smith neglected it. Even going back to when he had Smith down, Smith had a hold of that wrist, and he was riding out the clock more than anything. He didn't even care about the stand-up. It was just a bizarre fight the way it unfolded, but either way, if you look at the judges' scorecards and if you just stand back and watch every round separately, you could say he was just the dominant fighter, and he was going to elect a certain path to victory, and that was through dominance and causing damage, you know what I mean, and just not letting Smith get going.
Yeah, no, totally. And you know what it makes me think, especially as you're laying out the timelines, like there's a bunch of common threads. Like maybe is it longer opponents? The first Gus fight, OSP to Anthony Smith, those are the few guys that could match him in length. Layoffs were another one, which kind of maybe could even go into the tinfoil hat theory. Why was he on those layoffs? And again, I'm not giving those any strong parlance, or like I was saying too, when I said rematch, the reason why I clarified that is because Jon Jones, obviously, according to his coaches as well, he does better in rematches, right? So the reason why I'm putting these things together, it's like, man, Jon Jones is so good. Like for me, the only way I could see him getting beat is somebody with physical intangibles fighting him last minute, because he's such as good as he is, he's such a preparation nut, right? You hear the stories of him having, tape markers around his house to measure his opponent's reach, so when he's coming around the corner, he's just always measuring his opponent. It's always in his head, like he's that dude, which kind of explains why maybe he didn't take that fight, back at UFC 151.
Against Sonnen.
Yeah, and you're like, wait, you could totally, everyone's like, you're the best, you could totally beat this middleweight moving up, but again, in Jon's mind, he has to be prepared. So if for whatever reason he takes a short notice fight, folks, watch out if you're looking to take those flyers.
I'd like to see Anthony Johnson in a short
boy.
notice fight, because Johnson really, really has. I mean, he's got power in both hands with straights, with hooks, even as he's stepping back. Not that any of his opponents haven't had it, but I'm saying it just seems like everything he throws
kicks too
comes with bad intentions, kicks as well. But the fight just never happened. And right now, I think we can only start turning the page on some of these veterans and looking towards some of the young guys, i.e. Dominic Reyes, Johnny Walker, Alexander Rakic, all those studs that are coming along. But we'll get to them in just a second. Now, along the way, let's talk about Smith, why he fell short. Smith kind of explained it well if you listen to the press conference, and it's available on the front page of MMA Junkie. If you just scroll down a little, we got the whole press conference. The fighters come out individually, and I believe all the top names showed up, winners and losers, Dana White, at least from the top 6 fights. 6 fighters involved in the top 3 fights. I'm pretty sure I saw them all. And he just said, you know what? One thing that stood out to me is he's just hard to get to because he's got that long reach. And here's another thing about Jones, which I'm going to segue to in a second. I think how can I put it to you? You know how in the NFL they say we could throw the flag on every play, man. There's cheating going on every play, whether it's holding your jersey, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
or locking you up,
yeah,
or maybe just an extra shot at the quarterback or whatever. Well, Jones is a little dirty. All right, and I haven't even started in on the knee and the kicks. I'm talking about those fingers, man. They're still out there. And I see other fighters that when they do close in, all Jon needs to do is just point him up. And I think he could still do what he wants to do, which is to just keep you at bay. That's it. I don't think those fingers he's going with the intention of, I'm going to get you in the eye. I don't think he feels bad if he gets you that way, at least not until the ref tells him that he should stop it. But he's just keeping you at bay, and when he does it, he just, between that, the linear kicks, some of these offbeat, knees or kicks or whatever that are questionable, he's a little bit on that dirty side. But I'm going to tell you this much, guys. I don't know that it's something that the commission could correct or that will ever hurt him in terms of fandom, because again, in sports, there's just a lot of those types of athletes where they just skirt around the rules. Like Roy Keane from Manchester United, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He's not just going to cleanly tackle you. He's going to tackle you and maybe try and hurt you, or at least send a message. Those free safeties that are looking for the receivers to come over the middle, they don't just want to bat it down. They want to knock you out of the game. That's the type of dirty I'm talking about. So nobody run with that and get me in any beef with one of the baddest men in the planet.
But
that's what I'm trying to say.
It's hard to say it, though, because the linear kicks are legal. Or we just look at it that way.
Correct,
right?
correct. Or even those physical guys, those guys, when you go up for a layup, think about the bad boys from Detroit or the New York Knicks that would just hammer you. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. So he has a little bit of those, and sometimes he fractures the rules, and sometimes no. But I think those fingers is something that I think was bothering Anthony. He would try and get in. He could barely get them sometimes. And then what happens is it just forces you to think and sit idle, freeze, and then next thing you know, you're getting kicked in the face. Oh, I got to get my hands up. Oh, now in the body. Oh, now in the knee. You see what I'm saying? And then Jones is just teeing you apart. He's pretty masterful at it. And so what you got to do is just get right back dirty with him. You know what I mean? And to do all that in your first championship fight, knowing that you got to save your cardio over 5 rounds and trying to remember everything Coach Montoya and the rest of the team told you, that's a lot of pressure. You know what I mean? So Smith's going to learn from this and reapply it for his next championship run. But in that moment, I just believe it was a little bit of what I was telling you, kind of just mixed all up in this pot, that us human beings, man, there's something about it. There's just deer in the headlights, freezing, too much overthinking. Should I have ducked under? That's why I think he came up short. I didn't see him huffing and puffing. I didn't see him really damaged. He just was just a little frozen and idle.
How about that Bobby Brown kick?
Nice.
You know what I'm
Nice.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
when he just ran
That
out
was
of the
something new.
Cobra Kai one.
Yeah, yeah.
That was,
That was crazy.
But
the
Sensei, I
referee-
can beat this guy.
The
Nice,
referee
nice.
wasn't calling the fingers, though.
Nope.
That's the thing.
Well, that was another thing I was going to say.
Yeah.
I don't think you guys should feel too bad about that, right, Goes? I mean,
It's 2016.
what's a little documentary of that too? But what's a little documentary that came out around then or since then that Goes, you yourself had me watch? It was called The Hurt Business. Was that it?
Yeah.
And you remember what does Jon Jones say in there about the eye pokes? He's admitting to it in that documentary.
Yeah, that's what makes him look so weird sometimes.
Yes.
You want to defend him,
And
then
you can't when it's out there. And another thing, which I was, again, I got to rewatch the fight because there were a lot of things that weren't being called. So I, as much as I want to praise these referees, because I feel bad, man. I feel like they're just getting hammered every fight card, guys. And for everything we hammer on them, I feel like we should do a little better job of, saying some of the good that they do. But I will say,
Deduction?
I will say I don't have a problem with that. But I almost wonder if it was makeup because
I liked it.
You've heard I think Big John McCarthy saying Jon Jones doesn't like him reffing the fights, and if you go back and you watch it, I think the last one Big John might have reffed of Jon Jones, he wasn't liking, Big John's sternness, and I don't think Big John oversteps his sternness. I think he plays it right down the line, Obviously, I'm a little biased there. I'm a Big John fan, but I do remember that being a comment, and since then you've seen a majority of Herb Dean reffing Jon Jones fights, and regardless of who the ref is, someone who has to run the comb through Jon Jones, you know what I hear constantly through fights? Watch those fingers, John. Watch those fingers. Doesn't matter what round it is, how the fight's going. That is constantly being said. That if I were a cornerman of someone facing Jon Jones before the commission, I would tally it up for an actual argument, because you could actually, I've thought about doing this, and Herb Dean is probably one, and again, I don't want to come down on Herb, but I like a lot of what Herb did that night, but Herb Dean has definitely been the most lax on Jon Jones. Jon Jones smiles when he sees Herb Dean for a reason. There's a nice comfort, because you can sense when a fighter doesn't like the ref, but you can also sense on occasion when a fighter does, and I think there's a good relationship there. But yeah, if I were as a cornerman opposing, I would almost tally it up, bring it to the commission, and say, okay, here's this ridiculous body of work. Here it is documented in front of you, and by your guys' own word, the warning is already given in the back room. There shouldn't be no warning in the octagon. We've talked about this before. So mixed with all those things as this nice reminder on paper, I want a point taken the first time it's done to send a message, not just for my own selfish needs, but I would think as a commission, especially with this much documented, this high level of a guy who you're already being criticized for opening doors for this guy for all these other reasons, right? Why don't we just call a rule that you should have been calling day one? Can you do that for us once, commission? Can you do that for us once? I would do that as a cornerman.
That's what the English Premier managers do. When they have a big game coming up on the weekend, they will send these little subliminal messages towards a certain referee and the way they've reffed their games in the past or whatever. Sometimes they call it working the refs.
Yeah.
I think in North America, the managers in baseball, the coaches in football and basketball, they're doing it during the game more, whereas I see it in soccer where they do it before the game.
Yeah,
and still during the game they'll write it, but they plant something there, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and sometimes they'll take their fines, but what is another thing we have to really do is really unify the rules. 2017 rules in California, John had to have his fingers like this. 2016, he could bring them down a little bit. 70 days ago against Alexander Gustafsson, that one hand, okay. Here in Nevada, not okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, again, in the heat of battle, can you remember all that? I don't know. It's his job. It almost cost him his world title because I thought I saw a soccer kick in there, which he said would look like he was going for the body, but caught him in the head. And then, for sure, we all saw the illegal strike when he had the hand down, which Herb Dean thought was not only intentional, but he needed to give him a 2-point deduction. So, what do you think of that?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but do a lot of us get heated over this? Like, if this were any other fighter, would we be a little bit more lax? Is it because Jon Jones is so great that we feel like he doesn't even have to do this shit?
I agree.
I think that's what bothers
Yeah.
people. Is he's so good that we feel like he doesn't even have to go down that route. He can win fights without poking eyes and doing all that because he's so talented. I think that's why people really get pissed off over all this.
I think that applies
He's
more
always
to
in big fights.
the oblique kicks more than anything. Something like that. That's like you said, that's legal. where it's kind of like, and then the fact that he's already so good and already so long and already has these tools and is already so talented. Like, do you really need to do that, dude? So I think there's a lot to what Goes said, but at the same time, the crazy part is kind of like my hypothetical I laid out. He's kind of have this. He already has a body of work that you really could attack legitimately. That's recorded and on tape.
Yeah. But I mean, to be fair, I liked the 2 points. I was down with it.
Nice.
So did I.
Yeah.
So did I. And I've gone back and forth on what Anthony should have done. The sportsman in Anthony elected to continue with the fight. He was saying he was good to go. But in the post-fight press conference, Anthony did say, I'm not going to lie, those were the 2 shots that hurt me the most. Right. He actually said that. So guess what? They did have an impact.
Yes.
So as the fight progressed, he was damaged because of 2 illegal strikes. Now, would it have been enough to say, I'm not the same, I can't continue? Well, guess what would happen, guys? He would have been world champ, and when they would have immediately ran it back, because that's what the UFC would have done, he would have got the pay-per-view points. So that's why I said the sportsman in Anthony, I can appreciate that he didn't do it, but the businessman in Anthony, I don't know. Some will say, could he have weaseled? That was used. Yeah. That was the word Dana used. Dana White used. Could he have weaseled his way and all of a sudden made a business decision, just so that he could be world champion? They're 1-1. It's a trilogy. He's guaranteed a title shot. He's guaranteed pay-per-view points. I don't know. And would it have been a weasel move, again, if they were the 2 most impactful fight shots that he took in the fight? Yeah, I mean, last thing, I guess, on the call before we move on to that DQ portion of it, and just a good opportunity here to praise Dean and refs that might have perceived that I took a shot at, albeit fair. Why it's good that I believe that Herb Dean made that call, and why it's good to have experienced refs like Herb Dean. Whether we all want to, it's always popular to criticize these guys, but listen, at the end of the day, I love having experienced guys like Herb Dean for that reason, guys. I want to see referees take those calls into account, because to me the 2 points equaled out to, and I can't cite an exact one, we don't see it enough, but we've seen it where it's a clearly incidental knee to the head or a groin shot, but it does real bad damage, right? And I like it when the ref goes to the perpetrator and goes, listen, I know it was unintentional, but this clearly affected the fight. So I know you didn't do it, but I'm going to have to take a point just based on, not even though the intent wasn't there, but the damage was there. Right. And you need experienced referees to have the levity to kind of make those calls. So props to Herb Dean for that call. Right. And the way he worded it, it matched up with having to take 2 points. There's also incidents where he can only take the 1 point, but in this one he elected to take the 2. So I thought he did well with that, honestly. And again, I thought both guys fought well. It's just that Jon's just been in so many of those big fights. He was the one that was able to just adapt and take a certain route to victory. Anthony had another route, and that's the power that he does possess. He just wasn't able to uncork it. But again, Jon is a tough out. His defense is really tough to get through. You know what I mean? Just to even get a clean shot at him. And then once he gets going on the offense, you're more busy defending than doing anything else. Look, if they were to fight again, I think Anthony would fight a lot better. That's not me saying that I think he would win, but I think he would fight a lot better. But he now has to shake that off, use the money that he made from this fight, invest in his camp, and go on a 2-3 fight run. It's not the deepest division, so if you fight the right guys and win them, you can be right back in there. Because I don't think Jon Jones is going anywhere. That's my opinion. Oh, he could go another division though. Heavyweight. Yeah. He says Brock's the only thing that really interests him, and I don't know that that's on the agenda. I think he wants to fight some of these other names that are there. There's Corey Anderson. There's Thiago Maheta Santos. There's Johnny Walker. There's Dominic Reyes. So some of those guys are going to have to fight each other, and he'll eventually just have to take one of them. But I bet you he'll be ready to go pretty soon, because I think he wants to have a big year. All right, look, we'll probably circle back to that fight, but let's move on here. I want to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the co-main event. The co-main event featured Tyron Woodley defending his belt against Kamaru Usman. Excuse me. That's the fight that had the title change, but the way it went down was shocking to me, man. You're going to have to hear about this when we come back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, Channel 93. Don't touch that dial.
I figure
gentlemen, after 5 rounds, we go to the judges' scorecards for decision. The judges score the contest 50-44, 50-44, and 50-45 for the winner by unanimous decision and new UFC undisputed welterweight champion of the world, Cameroon, the Nigerian nightmare, Usman.
They were forged from the same ball sack, but act as though they've never met. They are the brothers Garcia, Gorgeous George and Goes.
Get inside the dugout of the top college baseball and softball programs in the country tonight, starting at 9 Eastern with Perfect Game Baseball, followed by Perfect Game Softball at 11 Eastern, only on ESPNU Radio, Sirius XM 84. So, as you've heard the call, Kamaru Usman did defeat Tyron Woodley via unanimous decision. Pretty much dominated a man in this welterweight fight. There wasn't very many bright spots you could point to Woodley and, you know, going down with the ship or anything like that. I mean, he let Usman storm his ship and basically just take it over. And to Woodley's credit, he had one of the classiest post-fight press conferences in which he made no excuses. Just a better man won. And boy, did Kamaru Usman execute a perfect game plan against one of the all-time great welterweights that the UFC's ever had. Remember, Tyron Woodley has had 4 title defenses. This would have been number 5, and it just was not his night. So first of all, congratulations to Kamaru Usman, you know, the first African-born champion for the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
Sir.
I thought he had a great post-fight speech and celebration. He brought in his daughter and held her up, and you know, I think not only was his message to his little daughter, but it was to all the little kids who have ever had any form of a rough upbringing or you've been questioned. And I know he was talking about himself a lot along the way too. You know, he came from poverty, but he changed things around. And guess what, man? Now he's the best at what he does in his weight class. So hats off to that dude. I thought he was very classy towards the previous world champion Tyron Woodley. Kind of, you know, they built it up with some smack talk, but they were able to shake it out. So how did this go down? Well, first let me get your reaction goes and get your thoughts, and then Dan, you bring in some analysis as well.
Dude, so you said it perfectly. 2 very classy people in this matchup, and he did have a great game plan, but he got a little bit of help, and he got it from Tyron Woodley, going for that choke and putting himself in the position, the exact position that would be Christmas for Kamaru Usman. That was tough because Tyron Woodley does not have the type of style to come back in fights. I think he found himself in a new realm where he was like, man, now I got to push this pace and take it to this guy to try and win round 2, and that would only bring us even. I think Kamaru did a great job of just making him backpedal and just be on the defensive and almost like try and survive this fight, not try and win it. It was really, really odd, and you can tell from the post-fight, everything that Tyron Woodley was saying. You go back and watch that fight, and you go, man, I'm watching it all unfold, everything he was saying where he just wasn't there. But it was such a great performance from Kamaru Usman that you can't take away from him either.
And Woodley always backs up, but he's been able to get away with that over these years. You know what I mean? He can explode at any minute. He didn't have much of those explosions because Kamaru didn't allow him to. Kamaru didn't pay the price on the way in either, whether it was a knee or an uppercut. Again, Woodley saying this as well. And the instructions from Dean Thomas at the end of the first, in between the second, I think if Woodley would have followed that a little bit more and secured round 2, it evens things out. But I think Woodley would have like turned on upstairs, and he started to become more mentally blocked. And when he was down 2-0, I think he knew, wow, I got to win 3 of these against somebody that is just putting it to me, or I have this KO power. But again, he just wasn't uncorking. It reminded me a little bit of Shields, the Shields fight, same thing.
Yep.
Except this one was 25 minutes instead of 15 minutes. Now, Dan, we all saw it. We all saw it happen. Kamaru got the fight, and he dominated it on the ground. But what was it that you saw that he was doing that was preventing Woodley from being able to sweep or just get up? Like Rampage says, get up, get up, get up. I mean, just there, he was just ineffective on his back.
Yeah, definitely. He wasn't effective. The question was it going to be able to get the takedowns and get past those layers. But kind of, use a word Dominic Cruz has said before. He was, I don't know if he was using it on the night of, but Usman was flooding his offense. That's what I didn't like about the pre-fight trash talk where Woodley was saying, "Oh, are you gonna box better than me? Are you gonna KO?" And those are really kind of unfair questions. He was framing those questions because he knew he had the on-paper advantages, and the reason why it was unfair is because that's not MMA. MMA is how well you mix that, and Usman was saying that. And again, you guys said Woodley was very honest and forthcoming, and he had a great assessment. He said it was just like the Rory McDonald fight, whereas me, I'm more on the side of Gorgeous George, is like the Jake Shields fight, but Woodley looked dumbfounded. And the thing is, if he looked dumbfounded, guys, I just looked dumb because I pretty much laid out this exact scenario in the breakdown on how Usman could win. But it was one of those matchups where, by the way, if you guys are following along, following my trends, if there's matchups where I go, I don't know how I feel about this guy should win, but this is, and I lay out a better path for the other guy, even though I don't pick him, chances are that other guy's going to win because I knew it. I said, I'm picking Woodley, but I'm going to feel really dumb if Usman wins because he's going to win the exact same way that I've been laying out previous paths that other opponents couldn't take on Woodley. But I was kind of swayed from that Maia fight that he showed that he could do 25 minutes of a grinding fight. And granted, he didn't throw much because he was defending takedowns and he only had one functional arm, but that made it all the more impressive. But yeah, I essentially laid out, if he doesn't knock him out or establish his presence early, this is going to get really gritty. And that being said, I didn't expect him to take all 5. In dominant fashion, but that's exactly what it was. And the whole time I'm kicking myself for not picking Usman because this was the path. Like I said, for whether it's fights he won, like Nathan Coy back in Strikeforce, to what Gorgeous George just said, Jake Shields, like that's been the path. You got to outgrind that guy.
How do you keep him down? Woodley's strong. Woodley has wrestled, so he's been down in close quarters.
Yes.
I'm sure just in practice with Ben, he says, "Oh man, there's days when Ben takes it to me," but. Why was he not able to get up from some of those positions?
I would have to look at each position to break it down, but Kamaru does something similar to Colby, which is kind of why another reason why I felt dumb for not picking Usman, because I've said on daily debates here, Colby would be my early lean for Woodley for that exact reason. But as far as the wrestling goes, holding people down, George, they do similar things. They collapse posts. In other words, when guys do try to get to their feet, they'll go and post their hand down, and they'll reach across, grab that wrist, put their weight, and kind of collapse that post. Anytime they try to get up, and really that's good wrestling. You want to collapse someone's base before they can build their base. And for Woodley, it's not like he's got a Robbie Lawler butterfly guard. Even though he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, Woodley's more of a top player guy, right? And again, the energy management. I mean, if he's worried about energy on his feet as far as throwing, which Woodley's been criticized, and the stats kind of account for that. What makes you think he's going to blow the energy to get back to your feet? And, that's probably the thing that takes most energy, I would argue, in MMA is getting back to your feet or when you're tired shooting a missed takedown. But, yeah, so for a guy like Woodley who clearly has an issue getting in his head for energy management, you see that with some guys, right? They get tired and like, oh, I don't want to taste that again, and they alter their style, right? We saw it after the Marquardt fight. He got knocked out in the 4th round, despite, I think, winning 2 of the 3 rounds, but you saw him get tired there, and that's why, even if it would cost him scorecards in the future, we would see Woodley manage his energy.
So what he wanted to do was mitigate damage, get to the end of the round, start on the feet, and land that haymaker.
I imagine that was the only thing in his head, especially as the rounds piled up on him, because it wasn't like he was going to get points back. Right. Kind of like what you said at a certain point. And that can mess with your head too, right, George? Right. You get down on the scorecards. Now
like
you're fighting that.
The openings are shrinking, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was frustrated because, look, at the end of the day, whoever I bet on, of course I want to win. Right. But there's times where I really don't bet the fight, and I just want to see both guys succeed. It's really all I want to do is just have both guys fight well and entertain, and then hopefully the guy that loses is able to come back and win again and, just go down another path and whatever. Every once in a while, there's a champion where I'm like, oh, my God, somebody beat this guy just to freshen up the division. That's it. Not because I hate the guy or anything like that, just to freshen things up for matchups because the divisions get frustrating to follow. But just that, I don't know. I feel like I'm sliding Usman if I say it just doesn't seem like it was the best Woodley, or if he had nothing for Usman. Usman was just that guy's kryptonite.
I think it's both. I think, we didn't see the best Woodley, but I do think that Usman was a potential bad matchup before this and proved that he was a bad matchup. But, hey, let me ask you guys something. You don't have to tip your hand too hard as far as who you had. And your boy here will admittedly say he kind of took a wash because I had too much tied into Jones inside the distance. But I saw someone mention this on Twitter before. What's the worst way to lose a bet? A guy you get embarrassed by getting submitted or knocked out real fast, where he didn't get a chance to get in the fight, or let's say you bet on a guy like Woodley and you're just watching him get freaking washed round after round. Like, what's the
that one hurts?
That one hurts more, man.
Me too. Yeah,
it's a lot of yelling.
You're sitting in it, right? You have time to sit in it. You're like,
personal.
It
becomes personal. Like, what the fuck, man? Listen to your coach. What are you thinking? You're yelling a lot. The other way, I think
the main event too. It's worse because there's at least like if it's the co-main, then you go, all right, let's make it up in the main event. And you kind of get it out of your system. But when you're doing like that Alves GSP,
man. Oh boy, worst. That one. So when it happens quick, you're like,
you guys reference that
you're frozen. No words come out of your mouth. You throw your hands up. You have this dumb look. You look at your buddies. They shrug. You shrug. But you know what? It's just kind of over then. You know what I mean? Because what can always happen in a fight that we always say? Someone can get caught.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's that. But in one of those where you see the mental block, you're just like, couldn't you have hinted to us that you were not feeling your best or that this might not be your best? You know, had you told me that, I wouldn't have played on you. But, man, yeah, that's a tough one. Luckily, I think I've told this before. One of the biggest bets I ever lost was Woodley against Shields.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But he also made me some money after that. You know what I mean? So kind of an all was forgiven.
So is that why you referenced Shields last Saturday, George?
I guess so. Yeah. I thought.
You know that fight very well.
I remember Miguel Torres. I lost. I think it was against Brian Bowles. Was another big one that I lost. And he was hurting Bowles, and then Bowles came back and boop, clocked him. So there's been more on the losing side for sure. That's why they keep building hotels over here. Dumbasses like myself. Look. Okay. There's really not much else to say, right? That was the fight, right, guys?
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
So
yeah,
now,
yeah.
I'm not. I think we may have to even clean up a little bit of what happened with Jones. But what do you want to see with Usman and Woodley? Now, here's the one thing I didn't like that he said in the press conference, but I don't blame him. He was already campaigning for the rematch. Other than that, he credited his fans, his coaches, the people around him. Usman took responsibility for the things that he came up short on in the fight. I mean, he was spot on, dealing with it right there, just minutes after losing his title. He did say he wanted the immediate rematch. Luckily, he said, based off of my resume, he knew that fight didn't warrant a rematch.
Right.
But he said the resume, the 4 title defenses, the tough names that I've had to go through, blah, blah, blah. Oh, man, I just don't think they're going to give it to him. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be a coward either and say, the UFC. Because if the UFC were to go, hey, George, we'll leave it in your hands, I think I'd go, I don't think we can do it. Because it was just a domination. He didn't get caught. Then you can go, well, he got caught. Let's see what happens over 5 rounds. He didn't get caught. He said he was healthy. In fact, he's so healthy he can run it back. I think it's just going to have to be one of those where he's going to have to take one fight and then come back and win it and then maybe compete again.
But that's what's crazy is, like, what fight can he take? Because the one that stands out to me that would make sense is the one he can't take, and it's Ben Askren. And then after that, people start, he's either fought him or they're tied up, right? So you get all the way down to guys like maybe if Masvidal wins, maybe Leon Edwards, someone like that. But really, like, everybody else just doesn't make sense.
Here's what needs to happen.
He's in purgatory.
I think he needs to fight. Well, Dana has already said Colby's next. And I know he said it before, but it looks like this time they're not going to back away from that. So Colby will fight Usman next. Now, Usman
can't be at the Palms.
Usman had, I guess, a fracture in his foot. Got a cortisone shot, and he was able to go out there and win a world title. But I think he just needs time off. I don't think he'll need surgery. I don't know, because I don't think it was the type of fracture that a cortisone shot isn't just going to, put your foot back together. Mm. So unless he hurt it off kicks or anything, which I didn't see many of, I think he's just going to need time off, and then maybe he'll be able to fight probably late summer, and it'll be Colby Covington apparently. Now, what does Woodley do next? You're right. It can't be Askren. Askren's on a flight to London because he wants to fight the winner of Till and Masvidal. So who next? Ponzinibbio? Technically, they're ATT teammates. But come on, Woodley doesn't go through those doors very often. He's more of a Rufus guy. the alliance is there because he owns an ATT affiliate. That's
Thought
why
Robbie.
That's why he flags
That's pretty close, too.
or waves that flag, possibly. And by the way, if Askren's going to London, could it be that Dana rips up that ticket and goes, "Nah, dog, it's you versus Robbie"? Now, folks, we purposely avoided Askren versus Robbie Lawler because that's going to take up a whole half hour, and we're going to take care of that at the top of the hour. We'll get to that. But there's many ways to talk about this. But first of all, real quick from both of you, because I know we got to go to break. Who do you want next? For Jones? For Usman? Or no, we already know who Usman's getting. Colby. What's next for Woodley? And who do you want next for Jones? I think we missed that one.
For Jones, it's got to be either Corey Anderson or Ozdemir, right? Those to me are the ones that make sense.
Volkan Ozdemir?
Yeah.
Well, he got taken out by
yeah, he's on us.
By this guy, by Anthony Smith. Corey Anderson. Okay. How about you, Dan? Nope.
Did you say who we wanted for Woodley, though?
Who do you want for Woodley?
Oh, for Woodley, dude, none of it really makes sense. I mean, maybe if you just want to tie him up a little bit, like you could maybe do Robbie, but you really get all the way down to guys like Leon Edwards, George Masvidal. Masvidal's tied up with Till. You can't have him fight Till again because you just beat him. I mean, like, it really doesn't make much sense for him.
Okay. Jones, I'm pretty sure Maheta Santos. That's pretty much getting lined up. I'm all here for that.
Yeah.
As far as Woodley goes, I think you could do the and we'll get into the Askren portion. But I believe that win or lose, let's just say it doesn't matter who wins or lose between Till and Masvidal. You could split those guys up appropriately. But as far as the Woodley equation to that side goes, I could totally see a Masvidal one because then it links the Colby Covington if they still want to build that fight because he'll be in his boys' corner and whatnot. Although I will say that's a bad matchup for Woodley deceptively. I know Darren Cruikshank dropped Masvidal with a right hand back in the day at lightweight, but this is a different Masvidal we're talking about. And I just wanted to plant one more seed before we go to break here. Be careful what you give these guys when they go out from championships. Maybe because it's welterweight, maybe because it's a wrestler around the same age guys. But I could totally see what happened to Johnny Hendricks happening to Woodley. Like we just see a turn in the career depending on how he gets match made going forward. You know what I'm saying? Well, that also tells a lot about what the UFC thinks of him, and how they match make him after this.
A couple names out there are still Stephen Thompson, who fights Showtime Pettis soon. Rafael Dos Anjos, who's coming off that loss versus Kamaru Usman. Ponzinibbio angle, we mentioned that. Damian Maia, I don't think Woodley would want to fight him. And then now you start getting to Neil Magny's, Leon Edwards, and I just don't know if Woodley would want to go further down in the rankings. I think he needs to stay towards the top.
Mm-hmm. It's part that, and it's part like Ponzinibbio. I don't know if the UFC would want to do that, right?
And
maybe.
You got to think of some kind of fun matchup because, again, like the champion fallout. Same thing happened to Rashad Evans. Like I was screaming at the top of my lungs, well, okay, well, now when the new dog is in, Jones established himself as the new dog. We saw Rashad kind of go down. Like he's still a former champ that deserves respect. Why don't we give him that Anderson Silva fight when Anderson Silva was still kind of going through turmoil? And that would have been, lined up. Rashad always talked about going down to 185, which he eventually ended up doing anyways. And I really wish they tried to do something fun like that. It's a good way to keep these former champions active, not disrupt the title picture, right? So they don't get back in there like an Aldo and start knocking off contenders. I don't know, just an idea.
Yeah, send us a tweet, or I'll take a look at the YouTube chat as well, see what you think. Again, I'm sorry we're without phone calls right now, but we're going to continue chugging along here. Right now we got to take another break. We still got one more hour to go and an extra 7 or 8 minutes off this first hour, so lots still to discuss here from UFC 235 that took place this past weekend. And when we come back, I'll give you my thoughts on who Jones and Woodley should face next.
Kamara came out, he brought it, sometimes you have a fight in the octagon where you feel like it's a bad dream. You want to throw punches, but they won't leave you a face. You see the opportunities, but you don't take them. He came out prepared. He had a great game of taking shots, punches to takedowns, great control. He was really heavy on top. So, hats off to him. I have no excuses. I was prepared for this fight, and it's just sometimes you have those nights where you feel like a bad dream. So, shout out to him. Hopefully we can run this back. I had the title. This is my 5th title defense. I would love to run it back with him. Come out here and have a different performance.
Charm, compassion, common sense. These guys have none of that. You listen to them, so you know better. I am awesome, though. They are Gorgeous George and Goes.
All right, we're back. We've got a few minutes here before we get to the top of the hour. At the top of the hour, we'll be talking a lot of Askren versus Lawler. Man, a lot to discuss there. But let me give you my thoughts on who I think Jones should fight next. I think he should fight Anderson next. Anderson's got a 3-fight win streak, and he's put in his time in that division. Some bad, some good, but still. They just rewarded Anthony Smith with a 3-fight win streak. You might as well do the same with Anderson. It's just that in the meantime, Thiago Santos has also come up with a 3-fight win streak. Now, one was by mistake because he was supposed to fight at middleweight, and then Andrews stepped in, and they go, hey, let's just make it a light heavyweight. He said, all right.
No, wasn't that supposed to be against Ozdemir in Brazil?
Oh, he was going to be – oh, you're right.
Because Andrews was able to make a 205 at like 2 week notice.
I stand corrected. So then, yeah, I guess the intention was there to be 205.
Still a strong case, though, for Anderson.
I thought it was somebody else at middleweight. And they
yeah. Oh.
So Santos has done it, except Santos, his fights have just been a little bit more crowd-pleasing. Now, that said, I thought Anderson kind of turned it up and has also put a little bit more energy into his fights. But regardless, it looks like what Dana wants, usually Dana gets. I mean, it's his ball. It's his court. It's his arena. It's his city. Whatever, man.
It's his world.
Yeah, exactly. So it looks like it'll be Santos. And I can accept that. All right, fine. I've certainly been more disappointed than that one. But whatever. As far as Woodley, I think, look, if I'm the UFC, I tell him, check it out, player. You and Askren, you guys were the dynamic duo on Fight Week. You guys are boys. You guys are pals. All right. We'll never pitch you against each other. But check it out. You're not really training in Coconut Creek. You and Ponzinibbio just got to do this. You know what I mean? It's a fresh matchup. There's no sense in giving you Lawler again because you kind of already finished him. And Lawler's really working off a loss, so are you, but you are the champ that's looking for a rematch. Get somebody on the upswing there, you know what I mean? So that's what I would tell him is Ponzinibbio. I know Ponzinibbio, I think, had an injury that he needed to come back from, and hopefully it's soon. Other than that, it would have to be the winner of Masvidal-Till. More Masvidal because Till's isn't fresh. It just happened, goddammit, in Dallas in September. So maybe Masvidal, because it looks like they're going to say, Askren have fun in London, but you ain't getting the winner. You're getting Lawler again. So lots there. I know it's lots to digest. The only thing that'll save Askren is if him and Till have a Colby Camaro type meeting where fracas that almost happens in a casino, and then all of a sudden you just can't turn your back to it because
I can't believe we still have that
too much
to talk
controversy.
About too.
So
It's a crazy card.
are you chopping on the bit to say something? We got about 45 seconds.
No, I was just going to add on to what you said. The names that we're circling on for Woodley, I don't envy those. Back to what I'm saying, being careful how you match the former champ, especially looking where he's at in his career. Obviously, confidence issue within the last fight. He's going, and then you're going to take that and put him against, whether it's Masvidal or Ponzinibbio, two power punching, high volume guys who deceptively can wrestle and move. Man, I don't envy that road to return. Not saying he can't beat either of those guys, obviously, or won't be favored to, but yeah.
They're all tough ones.
Tough ones,
for sure. All right, so there you have it. That's main event, co-main event breakdown for recap, I should say, for UFC 235, which took place this past weekend here in Las Vegas. I know we got about 30 seconds. Let me just say this. Gate was just over $4 million.
Okay.
Attendance was almost 15,000. Was 14,790 to be exact. The fight of the night went to Pedro Munoz and Cody Garbrandt. Performance of the night went to Johnny Walker and Diego Sanchez. When we come back, we'll start off with Ben Askren and Robbie Lawler. We'll talk about that fight, all the controversy surrounding it, and then we'll work our way down the main card and into the prelims as well. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 93. Stay close. Do not touch that dial.
second, it was on his head, and it was not on the blood.
Oh, no.
That was a bad stoppage.
I get paid to say things in this cool voice, and they get paid to be lame. Here are Gorgeous George and Goes.
All right, we're back. Now it's time to talk about the feature bout of the evening. Ben Askren, former Bellator and One Championship welterweight champion, took on Robbie Lawler, former Elite XC middleweight champion, former UFC welterweight champion. And boy, was this fight fun. Except till the very end. For anyone that had Askren, you know, had that ticket or fantasy fighting or whatever, you're happy as a clam. If you had Lawler, you were pissed. If you were just a fan, I think you were pissed. Why? Because of the controversy surrounding the bulldog choke that Ben Askren had on Robbie Lawler. Herb Dean thought Lawler was out, and he stopped the fight. Now, before he got to that, these guys locked up in the center, and Ben Askren had managed to tie up with Robbie Lawler. What did Lawler do? He basically pressed him up in the air. He looked like Ken Patera from WW. I guess it was so long it was WWF.
That's right.
And slammed him. Not the same as Randleman versus Fedor. It was the landing of the head that was similar, but still not as bad as that pile drive. You know what I mean? So he landed, and I thought, wow, did that knock him out? I'm thinking that for a second. But I'm seeing Askren still in it, except Lawler's just pounding him. He had what they call the seatbelt. You know, he actually had trapped the other arm, and he was punching. A couple of those are rocking Askren's head back. Between the slam and those shots and some ground and pound, I thought he could very well jump in there and stop it. And even the people that say that have that longest leash were like, let him fight to the death. You know, they're foaming. Even I think they would have said, yeah, he was good. You know, he's out. He's done.
Yeah.
Instead, Herb Dean keeps him in the fight, and they continue. I know they locked up one other time, and I remember there was a separation, and Askren still has shaky legs. He is not in it at all, man, until the fight manages to get himself back to the ground. And he put one of them schoolyard chokes on him. They call it a bulldog choke on Robbie Lawler, which at first it just looked like, hey, this is a good spot for me to recover and not have this beast still keep wailing on me with knees and elbows and punches. But next thing you know, it looks like he's under. And as I saw the choke, I thought, oh, wow. I mean, that could be dangerous for Robbie Lawler, but I haven't seen fights end that way, to tell you the truth, or if I have, I forgot him.
Miletich, you got to go way back, right?
Got to go way back.
Miletich, what's his name? Canadian guy, Newton.
Newton, yeah.
Clark Newton, right? Didn't that? Yeah,
right.
Yeah, you got to go way back.
So as he's doing it, I'm thinking that could be dangerous just because of the way I've seen, you know, when you're under the chin, especially when, you know, you're not a jiu-jitsu guy like Lawler is, you just never know, man. There's a lot of guys that are formidable strikers, but they'll give you that quick tap if they're just not familiar and they panic. But as I'm seeing it, I did see the arm drop, and I go, oh, he's out. I did say that. Whether it was allowed or whether it was just me thinking it, that was my reaction. Now, remember, Herb Dean, one of the best in the business, he's right there. He's crouched down. I thought it was a good call. When we see the replay, you can see, and I know this is even still being debated, but what I saw in the replay was when his arm went down, and Herb Dean started talking to him, it looked like as Herb Dean was talking to him, he was still playing off of that arm going down, and I think he just elected to go in there. Had he waited a half second and seen that Robbie Lawler gave him a quick thumbs up. Not the best thumbs up, but it was a quick thumbs up. And remember, the thumbs up, a lot of refs have said, I don't care if you give me a thumbs up. If I think it's done, it's done. It's not like the thumbs up is your get-out-of-jail card for sure. But when the ref is asking you if you can give him that, I think the ref will give you the time. And I think he would have given him the time, and then it would have remained to see what would have happened. Askren still may have won. We don't know. Or Lawler possibly could have come back. But up until that point, you got to believe that if they just ride it out, or let's just say they come back to their feet, Lawler's getting a 10-9. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The fight could play out in so many different ways. Anyway, all this is happening super fast. And you got one of the best in the business in that octagon. What can you do to make that situation better? Even anybody that despises Herb Dean, what are you going to do? Put the next guy in? I mean, that guy made a lot. Mark Goddard's made mistakes. Big John's made mistakes. I mean, it's one of the most difficult occupations on this planet to have a perfect night of fights. you catch some stuff, you miss a few other things. You're trying your best in a high-pressure situation, high-stakes situation, and you just hope that the result, maybe you miss the toes in the cage, or maybe you miss somebody's shorts getting grabbed. You can't see it all. You're trying your best. But in the end, you hope that the better man wins, and then you just catch these things on the replay and add it to your notes of what to watch on certain fighters. But I don't fault for Herb Dean, because I honestly thought he was just trying to do the best job possible. It's just that he missed that. And remember, I had to see like 6 or 7 replays until I caught a certain angle of when I saw that. I go, oh, okay. Because Robbie Lawler, guys and gals who are listening, immediately jumped up to his feet. Now, I've seen other people do that who it still looked like they were out, but the minute the blood choke was done, you are able to come out of it. I remember Goes coming out of one and then not realizing when we showed him the tape that he was gurgling. You know what I mean? But I mean, this guy just immediately shot up, and he did not look like in any way he had come back or anything, which is some of the ways that people are kind of spinning it. I just see it another way. That's how I saw that fight. Now that said, I love the fight. I love controversies in fights. It just sucks that it happened to 2 guys that I really like watching fight, and someone has to pay the price.
Yeah, right.
No disrespect to anybody on prelims or whatever, but I just feel like they may have those 23 or 21-year-olds may have another 5 years to sort out their career, whereas these guys, I mean, right here, that was a huge fight for both guys.
Yeah, I thought it was a bad stoppage, but I understand where he was coming from. I think he reacted off of that arm going limp.
Yeah.
And then and some people were even saying tap, which was really just Robbie trying to move his hand, right? So I think if he just would have gave it a half a second, I mean, you got to make sure he's not going to die. You got to just make sure. But so much is going on, and it just sucks for Robbie because we actually talked to him before the fight, and we saw how dialed in he was, and he looked great up until that moment. I thought of Cormier when he slammed Henderson. Remember how high Henderson went up in the air? Something similar like that. And
Cormier also was on Twitter saying he thought he was out. A lot of people were saying that he was out, that he had done that. But remember, as quickly as you can jump up, you can also just collapse. Remember when Jones guillotined Machida?
Yeah.
Boom! He fell down like a ton of bricks.
Well,
so
he got up, but he also, like, you could just tell in his face he was talking. He
got up.
Yeah. What we've seen
and by the way, Robbie Lawler handled that with class.
Oh yeah.
He did not make Herb look any worse. I'm sure there was some booze being rained down, but not like I've seen in other fights where the fighter immediately is very aggressive towards the referee. In that moment on Twitter, all forms of social media, they want to just end the guy's career, and he didn't choose to go that way. Why? Because he's a veteran. He's done this a lot. It may cost him that win bonus, but I think, you're seeing it already. Dana White wants to run that one back. You know what I mean? And that would be a big fight if they did it. And if they give him something else, then that's fine too. How'd you see it, Dan Tom?
Boy, I guess kind of like what you said, class by Robbie Lawler, and the two biggest things to take away, and I tweeted this out on Fight Night, is the class of Robbie Lawler afterwards and the toughness of Ben Askren for coming through that. And not a lot of people were given that credit after. Not a lot of people were giving it credit before, and even people who were giving him credit after and referencing it, they were saying, we've never seen this before. No, you have. If you go back and watch Ben Askren's fights, he fought a guy named Lyman Good, who is also in the UFC and won a Bellator champion. Good, that's right. And Ben Askren looked like, to put in Ben Askren's word, Chunk from, what's it called? Goonies. Yeah, like, he got his nose broken early on in the fight, an eye swollen, and his whole head looks swollen, both eyes. Fuck. Yeah, his nose is broken. He just looks deformed, and he has to go, the whole 5-round distance or whatever. So he's went through adversity before. So even though this was a really hard fight to pick, I don't even know who you guys ended up picking, but I ended up picking Askren. Okay, I ended up picking Askren for that reason, because even though his entries were kind of suspect, this guy's tough, man. You really got to put him completely out, and
he doesn't stop coming.
And you're right. I don't think I would have been upset either for the stoppage. It kind of reminded me of Jason Knight's finish over Chaz Skelly, UFC 211. I want to say he had the same thing, the arm trap, and was punching him out, and it was dangerous because that was actually a late stoppage. And Chaz, that guy's super tough, but he was already out a couple shots after. But that's the danger of that position. You look like you're flailing when you're in it, and to get out of it, whether you're trying to beat the arm that's trapped, by re-swimming that out or turtling over, you almost have to flail and give worse position to get out of it. So it's a very bad position. But as far as the stoppage goes, guys, here's my initial thought was, and Robbie was classy, but we've seen that, whether it's a decision, you guys talk about this, or whether it's a call that kind of went away. There's that fighter thing where they don't want to admit it. They don't want to admit it, but there's certain body languages that kind of say it. And at first, I thought it was like he went to contest it. Like, I thought he initially went out because of the arm limp. I didn't see the revised camera angle. And like George said, keep in mind, we had to see all these replays before we made a decision. These refs have to make that decision there. So I definitely I don't want to come down too harsh on Herb, nor did I for that call. But here's an interesting thing. I've heard Askin bring it back up recently in a tweet, guys. And this was actually also my initial read of it, because I thought maybe he went out for a second. And since it was a bulldog choke, it's a little more craftier, a little more, the onset's a little more different. Maybe it caused for a quicker release. Again, like you said, not all guys typically release that way, where they look like they're completely 100%, like Robbie did. But at the same time, Robbie was almost doing that. Fuck it, you know, the guy gets stopped. You're like, come on, why'd you stop? You're like, damn it, all right, fine, thanks. Like, they're mad at the ref, but they're also like patting the ref at the same time. It felt like one of those things. Like, of course, this is my first reaction, and the reason why I thought that is because in the replay, if you look, Ben Askren goes tight, and there was a couple checking moments, which Herb Dean should be doing in his defense. The verbal, obviously, couldn't hear, but Herb Dean did do the physical. Sure, he called it right after, and sure, maybe if he took another beat to look down, he would have saw the thumbs up, sure, but he did his job by checking him, and I think when he checked him, it almost looks like Ben Askren loosens his grip a bit. Like, is this out? He's out. Can I let go? You're stopping it, right? You just checked it. He's doing that kind of quick check with the ref, and then Herb, of course, with a split second after, does the waving motion to signal, and then Ben lets him go. But there's a split second where it's fully on, and Ben releases. It's hard to tell because a lot of the replays are in slow-mo to know how long that time frame is, but that little release sometimes is all you need to kind of get back into life. So then by the time Robbie Lawler snaps back into it, it looks like he was fine the whole time, when maybe, I'm not saying he did or didn't. I believe what Robbie Lawler says. I wouldn't challenge him, but my reaction to it, and Ben Askren, despite all this stuff, all the angles coming out, just today, Monday, guys, he tweeted out someone explaining a similar situation, and Ben Askren actually said, yes, this is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I don't think we should hold Herb Dean over the fire as much as other people for what that's worth.
Mm-hmm. And then how about Ben Askren going big-time heel, because him and Robbie have been very kind to each other. And then he says, Dana, don't you have anyone better for me or something like that?
Is that the best you got, Dana?
That's the best you got.
that was great.
Oh, wow.
I felt like he got past that. Like, he just kind of brought it all back for no reason, I thought.
Whoo, I don't know, man.
He couldn't help himself. He couldn't help himself. It was too perfect.
He says, I'm just honest. He goes, I'm not trying to intentionally be a heel. I'm not scripting things, but at the same time, I think he was just holding on to 5 years of his probably hatred towards Dana, because he felt disrespected and slighted. It just happened to be a guy that he likes, admires, respects, and Robbie that had to go down with that quote. But God damn, he was a G. I let that one go. I was like, God almighty. That is pretty brutal. But he did it, man. And I'll tell you what, look at his Instagram. Look at his social media, man. He's been blowing up, man. This one fight is so meaningful to him at this point. I know he didn't want Tyron to lose, but there's kind of an opening there, because, like I said, I don't think Tyron's going to get an immediate, and Tyron will still have to beat another tough welterweight. But you never know. Maybe Askren can go down that road.
I'm not gonna
fighting for a title.
Just real quick, I'm not going to speculate on whether or not he hates him and that's pent up. I don't know that or not. But what I will say is I liked it, and I would argue that's the way to play it, right, guys? Like, we all saw it happen, and it's controversial. And we'll get to what happens next. But if I'm Ben Askren, guys, I'm going, man. You see what you see what I would have done to Robbie Lawler if the ref didn't save him back there. Like, I would be.
He would have caught these hands.
Yeah. I would have just been like, you want
these hands? I was just getting started.
You want me to fight who? You want me to fight who? When? Where? No, I just destroyed a former welterweight champion. I'd be running that to the bank just because I know it's gonna piss everybody off. Like, that's, in my opinion, that's the move. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh man, I'll tell you what. It was something else, but. It was controversial, and it looks like they're going to run it back. But this is now our time to do the daily debate, and that's why I was holding on to it. So hit it, Josh. Let's do this.
The brothers Garcia seemingly can't agree on anything.
Everybody knows it's duck season. Rabbit season. Duck season. Rabbit season.
Whether it's food,
Less filling.
tastes great,
Less filling.
tastes great, gambling,
Always bet on black.
I like red.
Black.
red,
Black.
Red.
Black, dummy.
or even social media.
Instagram.
Snapchat.
Instagram.
Snapchat. The same applies to the biggest stories in MMA. Time for MMA Junkie Radio's Daily Debate.
All right, here we go. After the controversial ending to their fight at hashtag UFC 235, do Ben Askren and Robbie Lawler need to be booked for an immediate rematch? It says yes or no here. But you know I want more than that, guys. Go ahead, Dan. Start things off.
Man, you know, a lot of people would probably want to see the controversy come to a close. I think if we did a general poll for just that base question in MMA, I think, yeah, who doesn't want to see controversial things have some kind of finite ending? So we know. That being said, if I'm Ben Askren, I'm taking that controversy like the ball that everybody's playing with, guys, and I'm running to a complete different basketball court. I'm running as far as I can. I'm going and saying, you know what? Not only did I beat Robbie Lawler, I beat him convincingly. You better be lucky. You better be glad the ref broke him off me. I'd be running with that narrative knowing that it's going to upset everybody, and that's going to give Ben Askren a little more bargaining power and perhaps maybe give him that matchup that I think a lot of us were wanting that he got signed on. You know, as fun as that fight was, as much as I don't mind seeing it get run back, I think a lot of us maybe are salivating on other matchups for Askren, so I'll go no.
Goes.
I'm going to go yes, but there's no way it's going to happen. For pretty much everything Dan just said, if you're the UFC and you're thinking, okay, actually, even if you're Ben, here's what you're thinking. Why don't I fight someone else? And then if for some reason I lose that fight, I always have this to come back to. Let's come back and settle this, okay? Get him that Till Masvidal winner. He can fight that guy then. If it doesn't go his way, he has this waiting for him. If you're the UFC, you're probably thinking, man, we really just didn't like it too much when Woodley was on top. He gave us a lot of problems. This is our chance to kind of move a guy up in a direction where we have the excuse to now say, well, you guys don't want to fight each other, right? Move him closer.
Okay. I would say no, because I think I understand that there was a controversy with the ref, but we have to believe that he was doing the best job possible. That's just the way the fight played out. You know what I mean? If they run it back, of course Robbie Lawler could win. If they run back any fight, the loser could win. You know what I mean? In almost any fight that you pick. So that argument, I don't know. I would like to see them build up and maybe fight a rematch down the road. Now, that said, what I don't like is that Askren's going towards Till and Masvidal, two guys coming off a loss. You're supposed to be going more upwards. You know what I mean? It's no disrespect to them. I'm just talking about where they're seated. Remember, this is guy's a former champ who they told, you can't make it happen, or have you made it happen in the UFC? Now make a believer out of us. Well, he just did over a former champion. I would be gunning a little bit more upward.
But he's got beef with Till. Beef sells.
He just started. Well, he does, but he could have beef here depending on how Lawler takes that comment.
Nobody's ever had beef with Lawler in their lives. Lawler doesn't. He doesn't say anything.
Yeah, they did.
You can't even tell if he's upset or not. Nothing.
That's true, man. Sometimes you got to check for a heartbeat there.
For this fight, what did he do the whole lead up? Talk about other people. Everyone but Lawler.
Mm-hmm.
Just can't happen.
And it's not like we can't put Lawler in a bunch of other fun matchups like we're talking about Askren, guys, right? We could even throw Robbie Lawler back up to middleweight and find some people to bang up there.
I'd like to see Lawler versus Whitaker.
Shoot. Now, oh, my goodness. Did you see? Look at this.
Lawler has a history at middleweight, but, yeah, you know what? It looks like they want to do it. UFC, don't do it. I just think that these guys, they don't want to train for the same guy. They don't want to go through the same sequence of building up this hype. If it happens organically and they can rematch it at some point, if you have that confidence that Robbie can win his next fight and you think Ben can, then maybe they'll do it, but later on this year. But for right now, just give them the fresher matchup.
I'm calling for a mini debate within the debate.
Okay.
Say they do make the rematch. Who you take? Before this, you took Askren.
Yeah.
You took Lawler. I took Lawler.
Uh-huh.
Did this fight change your mind at all?
No, I'll stick with Lawler. How about you?
It didn't change my mind, but it didn't make me feel any better about my pick. I'll take Askren still because
Askren didn't get going.
Yeah.
I mean, but Lawler did have one stuff. Remember, he kind of did like a sprawl.
He did, strong sprawl.
You know what I mean? So I knew he had some of that in him. the fucking fight should have just played out. I think we would have got more data and be able to answer that question.
Well, still
but without that, I'll
fight.
just go with the, like I said, when they went down the steps, if you were a fan that just rushed in with your popcorn and your beer, what happened? I missed it. And nobody wants to answer you. You'd probably go, oh, Ben got fucked up. You know what I mean? And that didn't happen. So I'll go with I can't believe I'm saying this against an undefeated fighter. But I think I'd still take Lawler again.
I think I'd still take Lawler too, but I think the result of the mini debate is we're just stubborn, right? Because I think we should take.
I think Ben Askren's sitting there going, what do I have to do?
I think the result of the mini debate is that it actually
I'm winning titles everywhere, and I just beat a former champ. What do I have to do? This is what Ben Askren said.
What Junkie Nation say?
It was close. Even they can't decide. 51-49. Yes, 51. No, 49. And that was over 1,200 votes that were registered. So it was right down the middle, man. Shout out to a couple people here. At Mike Tyson 2007. He says, yes, so hopefully Lawler finishes the job. Ben Sutherland at Ben Suth 314-48652. What is all that? He says it might have ended early, but it was over. Ben had the choke in, and it was over. So even those two are beefing. Thanks, Junkie Nation, for participating. That's your daily debate. Let's continue on here with the fight card, guys. Do you like him going to London and
I like it.
Masvidal, or even if he's just going to go and antagonize, I think is that just part of the job?
I like anything Ben Askren now. Anything he does, I'm down. He was just hilarious in the lead up. You can't take away from what he did in the fight. He performed.
Dude.
He won the fight. I like everything about Ben Askren.
It's a short list for high-level competitors who didn't feel UFC jitters, but I'm comfortable putting Ben Askren #1 for not feeling UFC jitters at all. He's even doing those. He was
Frisbee golf on Saturday morning.
He was even one of those few people who, and you guys talk about this, why can't fighters, basketball players do it mid-game or between periods, and you see ESPN kind of embracing more of the thought you guys talk about. You notice they're doing fighter interviews like they did Ben Askren when we were already midway through the prelims.
Yeah.
They're interviewing with a shirt kind of cage side, and he had no, and you know how so many fighters would have issues with that behind the scenes, and it was show on camera, right, guys? You know.
He was solid.
No, he was like
golf at Sunset Park.
Well, that's how wrestling. Well, that's how
in the rain.
Well, that's how these wrestling meets were. When you go back at wrestling, like go back and watch these guys, even like Chad Mendez, like they'll be interviewing these guys before their big matches and throughout the tournament. Like they're almost groomed for that with the wrestling. So competing with their friends. I worried how that dynamic would affect Woodley competing with your friend of the night, but not for Askren, man. That guy is just mentally just wired fucking like a vault.
Can I call for one more mini debate?
Yeah.
Or should I hold on to this for tomorrow?
We're on Askren. Let's debate.
Oh, man. Is it Askren related?
No.
Oh,
well,
okay.
it kind of is. It kind of is.
All right.
Do it.
Okay, who was the biggest star, aside from the 2 title fights, whose star is shining the brightest, all right, coming out of this fight? I'm going to give you 4 answers. Ben Askren, Zabit Magomedsharipov, Johnny Walker, or Weili Zhang. Careful now. Careful. They all bring something to the table. Which one would you say was the one that's popping the most? And they're all popping.
I mean, it's hard to overcome Ben Askren, but the MMA Twitter seems to be loving them some Johnny Walker, man. I mean, we see it, an athletic guy who gets knockouts and is kind of goofy, but I was worried, I would see him do these face plants like on the Dana White Contender Series, the Brazil one, and I'm like, this guy's going to hurt himself. And I even think shout out to Capose Akrabaka Hitman. I think he even tweeted that. Like the only thing we had to worry about this guy is him hurting himself in his post-fight dance, and then sure enough, he ended up doing it. So he's a goofy cat. I don't know what to think of him yet. It's hard to break him down, But I'm definitely here for him. I'm going
Ben Askren. I like where you're going with Johnny Walker. I think that would be my #2. The only thing is the guy at the top of his division is just so dominant.
Johnny Walker.
And Johnny is so young that you just feel like, oh, maybe 1, maybe 2 more, and then let's get him there. As where Ben Askren, I think he's kind of proved that he can just perform right at that level right now.
And by the way, doesn't Johnny Walker look like he's got that blue ice water in his veins a la Ben Askren?
Yeah.
He's just chilling and making faces, and then he goes out there and just decapitates people. But I think you're both maybe missing something. Weili Zhang may have currency printed after her. I mean, when you do well in China, especially on the sporting front, you are well known to what is it, 2 billion people over there?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's where the UFC wants to go. They're investing all this money into that performance institute that's supposed to be 3 times bigger than the one we have here in Vegas. And by the way, did you guys catch Dana White saying there's going to be both 3 in Mexico and 1 in Puerto Rico? I was like, fuck yeah. I'm telling you, the sport keeps growing. But I'm just wondering if Weili Zhang was really, really the quiet winner for the UFC. I don't know. I sure don't know, but I'm wondering just because of how powerful that country is, how populated that country is.
You're right. The China factor. She's the only ranked Chinese fighter, and if we're doing a top 3, you could argue her number 1 with right behind her down at strawweight, Yan Jiaonan. She's a badass, Chung-Li-looking kickboxer, man. And, of course, Song Yadong at 145, who's super athletic. Yadong's athletic. Don't sleep on it. And but yeah, I mean, Yadong is making some noise at that division quietly.
You think Yadong might spring up sometime this summer?
I mean, with the right promotion, Yadong can really do some damage, right? I mean, because it's about showing, but it's showing up and blowing up, and I would argue Yadong does both.
Nah, quit stroking Yadong's ego.
I know it's gonna get.
All right. We better take a break. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 3. We still got way more fights to break down and recap. A lot went down at UFC 235 this past Saturday in Las Vegas. And again, once the show's over and you're chilling at home and decompressing from a hard day's work, check out MMA Junkie. We put out a lot of content this past weekend. Kudos to our editorial team, the videographers, the writers, the editors. Everyone was hustling. We'll be right back.
Blah, blah, blah. Here are those two dummies, George and Goes.
All right. I know I said we were going to move on, but we're not. Because we're not technically done with the welterweight division. We are done with Usman and Woodley. Usman's a new champion at 170 pounds. And then we did talk about Lawler and Askren, the fight, the controversy, did our daily debate. But did you know the welterweights weren't done facing off, skirmishing? Because there was some footage captured by TMZ Sports that had Usman and Colby running into each other. I guess you know for a fact that was the Palms?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was at the Palms Hotel. And don't worry, fans, the fight didn't break out. But the hustle and bustle of, positioning and shoving, a couple punches were thrown. But what I mean is, like, there wasn't, like, somebody getting laid out, somebody's skull's cracked, and charge is going to be pressed. I don't think any of it's going to happen. So it was just a skirmish between two camps that aren't big fans of each other. If you recall, Colby had done our show on Friday night. We did a little post-fight overtime show. Yeah, a little primetime show, I guess. Primetime after the primetime here with Colby. And it went up on Junkie over the weekend. Remember, we had some studio problems, connectivity problems on Friday. That's why that went down. One of the guys that was with Colby was actually the big guy that was trying to shield the incident from happening. It's on the front page of MMA Junkie if you want to catch it. I only looked at it once or twice, so I haven't really dissected it. I think boys will be boys is what it'll boil down to. But it's just kind of unnecessary, I would say. I mean, Usman won. He looked great. I know he's injured. Go on being with your daughter and your family and your friends and do your thing and just walk by the other guy. The fight's set. And Colby looked like he got what he wanted, and that's the next shot. It came out of Dana's mouth. Either that or he's going to have to explain to everyone again how he's worked over Colby, if he goes in another direction. But it looks like Colby's next. The job was done. Guys, don't let a situation like that break out and become worse. Remember, the law can brush it aside. No one presses charges. But guess what? If Nevada gets into it, then all of a sudden, do you really want to write a check for $5,000, $25,000, or take a suspension? No, man, you don't. Like, you have a chance to settle it at some point. Forget about the street cred or anything like that. Especially those guys. Those guys are all making good money. You know what I mean? It's unfortunate that it happened, but it did, and luckily it wasn't worse than it turned out to be.
I think when innocent bystanders are involved, there were so many cues in that little discussion for them to stop. Like they're at a buffet, all right, and they're going at it, and they have people with them, people that were trying to break it up, even Usman was trying to calm things down. Colby really wasn't saying too much either. He was just kind of like, hey man, it's set, let's fight in the cage, whatever. But then when you start seeing like people not get thrown around, but trying to get out of the way, and they're stumbling over each other, a few females, a pregnant woman.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
There's just there were too many signs that, hey, we're getting out of control here. Like, this has nothing to do with these people. And
I did hear a lot
of one lady that was like right in the middle of everything, like trying to actually stop him. I was shocked.
I did hear a lot of security. People were yelling for security. So who knows, man? I've told you at the weigh-ins, when they have a shove or something like that, I feel like it can sell some pay-per-views or it can generate interest for those people that are looking for content, sporting content, or any form of entertainment. But I don't like it to spill out, into the streets. I know I come in here saying, wow, I saw a great street fight on YouTube, but some of that will be like dated 2014. I can't control what happened. I'll watch it. But in our sport, I think things are well, especially for a lot of people. Don't go out there and ruin it by making a bad decision. Yeah,
I mean, we're fresh off the heels of what happened in Brooklyn, and we're starting to get back to some of these incidents that's not really healthy for the appeal of the sport. Colby's now banned from the Palms, which is kind of funny. Yeah, he can't go back there.
Oh, because of the Dana and now this.
Yeah, I think this is what probably set it all over.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it just kind of sucked. And
what was the backstory? Who started it, or what happened? Like, what happened there? Was it just two people walking by each other and they had word, or did somebody actually was one party the jerk?
I think Colby was in the buffet line, and then they came over, and then they all started yapping back and forth. Remember when we talked about Conor McGregor, and he's kind of just said so many things that he's going to have to live with the fact that that's his life now. At any moment, anybody can creep up from behind and want to punch you out for the things that you've said. That's got to be his life, and that's kind of where Colby's at right now. Like, I get it. It's not supposed to happen. It shouldn't happen, especially in a public setting like that. But he can't act surprised because he said some pretty bad things. And a guy like Ali Abdelaziz, if he runs into you, and he's said it plenty of times, if I catch that guy or if I run into him, he's going to have problems. It shouldn't be that way, but it's kind of the life that Colby has to live now.
How does that look? I mean, I'm reacting to it with you guys here, and I just don't know how that looks. It looked bad to me, you know, for a lot of the reasons you guys said. And the ironic part is Colby being banned is, from the video to the fact that he was the one in line tells me that he was not the one starting that confrontation. Now, Colby not shy to jab her off, as we saw in that video, which reaffirmed that. But come on, you got to know at that point that's who Colby is. And, you know, you have, I don't know if it was Usman's brother, or, you know, cause,
Muhammad?
Yeah, because he's a big Mo's a big dude.
A couple times, yeah.
Mo's a big dude, and it's hard to tell in the video, and it looked like he was more kind of sizing up with Colby's dude. I don't know if it was his friend or security.
By the way, I don't think that guy was bodyguard. I think he had something to do with a cannabis company the other day, right?
Probably. Yeah, probably.
So I think he was just like a sponsor. He's a big guy, but I don't think he's like out there like he wasn't one of the Samoans that Colby talked about. Or anything like that. He just got caught in the crossfire, I guess. Yeah,
I was going to say, well, regardless, I guess let's just say those two guys are just kind of matched up with each other, it looked like. But it just looked bad to me because you have, at a certain point, like, for one, it's like you guys should know better. Usman is being the more calmest out of all of them. But even he is, like, leaning over and being the most consistent as far as, like, he's still technically initiating. He's reaching over, he's pointing, and he's saying logical things. You know, Usman's not a bad guy. He's saying, like, hey, you can't be talking like this. You can't be talking. And, you know, he has his stance, and that's cool. I get that. But, like, do you really think is that really the time? And not only is that really the time, are you really going to get through to a guy like Covington? Really, is that really going to make a difference? And then to the right of him, you have Ali taking swings at Colby, like an MMA manager who is gaining a lot of prominence. We have him on the show. I love it when he's in here and all that. And you know, I don't wish anything ill of Ali or any of his clients, but a guy that important, you know, a guy, you know, again, not just fighters for what you guys said, but what about from a manager standpoint? You're representing the fighters, and you're caught on camera swinging. And let's be honest, guys, it's not like Ali doesn't have enough heat, or, you know, Goes talked about, you know, if you know, certain people being in the public eye, you kind of have to be ready for these things, whether it's fair or not. And Ali's definitely another one of those guys that gets heat his way. So I'm really interested to see what it's going to do as far as that image. But regardless, it's not about who's right or who's wrong there. I'm with you guys. Let's just save it for the fight, because I want to see both those guys get paid. You know, yeah. So
when you see this, when you hear people screaming, especially like kids and women,
yes,
that's a sign to stop. And when you see a phone come out, that's another sign to stop.
And not only that, guys, it was a pregnant woman, which was kind of my alarming. I'm like, come on, guys. And not only that, what was another thing they were saying was, save it for the octagon. People were yelling, save it for the octagon, which tells me that it's like, okay, you know, you're not getting away like you guys are just some random street thugs that you're going to be scaring people. Like, you've been identified, okay, at that point. People know who you guys are. That should be a self-identifying thing that either pregnant lady, women in distress, or someone say, hey, that's Gorgeous George. Even if you're in your heatedest moment, you're like, oh, fuck. They know who I am. Somebody call. Like, those two things alone should be the snapping factors, even if you're a testosterone, maybe even alcohol-fueled male. But neither of those, which were repeated, didn't do anything, and that's what kind of bothered me the most. So I kind of second goes on that part.
I'll have to go back and see the video. There's only one video, right? Or is it different angles?
The TMZ one. I think Colby's also filming, but I haven't seen that's gotten out.
Gotcha.
Because afterwards, you can hear him saying, I don't know who he's talking to, but
well, the UFC's got their own.
UFC's
got their own security. The Palms, they have it, and then Metro. Who knows? All right, guys. Let's continue on here with this card. Weili Zhang defeated Tisha Torres. These are women's strawweight. And Zhang now approaching being a top 5 fighter in that division. I put her between 5 and 10 this morning. That was my suggestion to the editorial. Tisha Torres losing to another quality opponent, but, you know, those are starting to mount up. And I'd like to see her come back with a win streak, because I think she's one of the top fighters, but she just can't seem to get over that top 3, top 4 hump. Pedro Munoz defeated Cody Garbrandt. Cody Garbrandt was this close to being the winner and getting his arm raised and, shaking off those 2 losses to Dillashaw. But what happened was he, I think, got a little too excited, and it got turned into a firefight. Munoz was hurt. Garbrandt was on his way, man, I'm telling you. And Munoz started throwing with the reckless abandon of a fighter who's hurt but has trained to throw counter hooks, in defense, so that you can maybe catch somebody coming in or at least let them know, hey, I'm firing back. And he wound up catching Cody Garbrandt, hurting him, finishing him, and that was that. All this in the first round, man. I mean, I'm telling you, it was a really, really fun fight to watch. It almost went the whole 5 minutes of the first round, and in 4:52 of the first round, and Pedro Munoz got the win, and now Pedro Munoz, pretty good position. Now, that said, you got Marlon Moraes at the top of that hill versus Dillashaw. If Dillashaw elects to defend versus a 35er, not Henry Cejudo, who will be a 35er that night. You also got Aljamain Sterling making a lot of noise, and I believe the next guy in line now is looking like a guy like Pedro Munoz.
Yeah, and that's a fun thing about, well, actually kind of both of the guys, but you can match Pedro up with anyone, and it would be a great fight. But
oh, yeah.
He really he was smart. Cody's a great fighter, but he's sort of been his own worst enemy, and he got caught up in that firefight, and Pedro took advantage of it. It could have easily gone the other way, but that's the dice that you roll. And I think a lot of times when we're sitting here, we're talking about guys like Tyron Woodley or Stephen Wonderboy. They're too tactical. They're probably avoiding certain things like that, and we're going to see where Cody goes from here. What does he do? I mean, that's a tough one.
What I've always thought, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, when you hurt somebody and you start chasing them, you're trying to cut corners and cut angles so that you can come in and zero in and not follow, because as you're following, if somebody comes in and turns, the hook angle's already there. You see what I'm saying? You'll often hear the announcers talking about that. But there's been times where when you hurt somebody and they cover up and they're closing in, it just seems like if you were just to extend your arms a little bit as they're covered up and create that space, you could once again be in the firing line to pick the holes that they're giving you. If they're too covered up, like Nick Diaz, he used to go to the body, boom, boom, get you to lower them, then bam, bam, tag them, or at least put you in the distance of finishing with a knee or a kick or something. And oftentimes that's where the tie-up happens, or that's where you wind up getting clipped. I'm telling you, those counter hooks are so dangerous. Mm-hmm. And now to do that, it takes a little bit of poise, calmness, and I get it, they're in a fight, but I've seen some fighters be able to do that, and succeed. It sucks, man. I thought Cody was gonna really win this fight and be back in action, but kudos to kudos to Munoz. He got the job done.
Yeah, this was an IQ test for Garbrandt, man, and he didn't pass it, man. That's 3 times in a row. That's really tough, and especially because I feel bad because I feel like he was kind of forced into that rematch that really shouldn't have happened with TJ. But he had the chance to right it here, and he fell back into those old ways. And props to Munoz, man. Definitely a fun guy to watch. And this shin just blew me away. I mean, when I picked against Munoz, it was guys against like this, like Font, like better strikers who could pick away at Munoz's porous defense, because Munoz doesn't really move his head. Occasionally he'll throw up the shell like George was articulating, but he just shows he can keep taking these shots. But he's got that John Lineker plan B, even though he might not have like a knockout power like John Lineker. He'll go for the submission. And yeah, I mean, but how about this, guys? Another one round war that qualifies for fight of the night. We don't get too many of those. And speaking of John Lineker, I would think the last 1 round fight, the last 1 round war I can think of was John Lineker and Francisco Rivera. So again, bantamweight producing these fun 1 round wars.
I think I'm a heavy breather. Sorry,
that's okay. All right, yeah.
That's why I was putting this up, but when I put it up, I thought I heard another heavy breath. So was one of you two blowing out of a nostril? Oh, it could be a little you.
I really gotta
watch me. So I know I'm guilty, but now if I go like that, I thought I heard it.
Okay, I'll just breathe regular. Ready?
Not as bad. How about you, Dan? Well, maybe it was more me. All right. Anyway,
I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it.
Anyway. When I was a kid, and I would be home alone, he would call the house number, and I would pick up, and he would do that. He would breathe like that.
Michael Myers.
Michael Myers scared the shit out of me.
That's scary. That's kind of like George pulling like what Rogan did, and it didn't stick with me, thankfully. But at the beginning of the broadcast, it's like, I think the floorboards are louder here today.
Yeah, they were, huh?
And they were, but I was like, no, don't say that now. It's gonna be stuck in all our heads for the rest of the thing. But it didn't happen that way. But
I caught it early on when it was a little bit more quiet, but then that place started.
That's true.
Rocking and rolling.
You're right. Yeah.
All right, listen, I got to blitz through some of these, so I'm gonna say them, and then when we come back, you guys tell me what you want to talk about. Zabit Magomedsharipov defeated Jeremy Stevens. Johnny Walker defeated Misha Serkinov. Cody Stamen defeated Alejandro Perez. Diego Sanchez defeated Mickey Gall. Edmund Shabazian defeated Charles Bird. Macy Chausson defeated Gina Mazzani. And Hannah Cyphers defeated Pauliana Viana. So that rounds out the prelims that took place on the UFC Fight Pass and on ESPN as that led into the main card of the pay-per-view. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about a few of these fights. Listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 83. Stay close. We'll be right back.
Tell your boss to reschedule that meeting. Call your wife and tell her lunch is off. It's time for more MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Goes.
All right, so let's do a couple quick shout-outs here. The Human Moron,
Yes.
Kevin from Chicago. hanging out in the chat room, leaving comments and things like that. Dave Manley as well. Iron Mike. Shout out to both of you. All right, so this is what. Oh, Juan Ramirez also. So this is what I was looking at. It's the following. Tyron Woodley finally fought a wrestler with a good chin. Karate boy, jiu-jitsu boy, Muay Thai boy all favored his style. So that's why he's saying Woodley lost. Look at Woodley's losses. Kevin from Chicago continues. He had trouble with Marquardt, Nathan Coy, Jake Shields, and Rory, honorary wrestler. As far as the Lawler stoppage, can't fault Herb Dean here. Lawler dropped his arm like a wet noodle. Easy fight to stop. Cordrick Glasses says, what's up to you guys?
Hi, Cordrick.
Yeah. Iron Mike says, Bulldog, 3 more seconds, blood. Is he talking in code there?
3 more seconds, blood.
Yeah.
From the Bulldog choke?
He just says, Bulldog, 3 more seconds, blood.
All right. Yeah.
I don't know.
No either.
It's like he's talking in code or something. All right. Tim Elliott finished the guy on Tough Show with the Bulldog, is what Kevin from Chicago is also saying. Colby versus Usman, it's looking that way, Iron Mike. Kevin from Chicago says, Dana's pissed his big, mean brawler Lawler got beat up by a dad bod goofball. Ben Askren.
That's a good one, Kevin. This big, mean brawler Lawler.
Iron Mike says, I would like to see them move on. So Till or Jorge for Ben Askren, according to Iron Mike. All right, and Dave Manley says, what song was that coming in from break? We will ask Josh because we are having trouble hearing each other. But I'll see if he can answer that question for me via the chat, via the iMessage that I have here. By the way, did you guys hear Luke Perry passed away from 90210? And also, was it the singer from Prodigy? Did you guys hear about that one too?
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that. I knew about Luke Perry.
Yeah.
Luke Perry was only like 52, right?
May they rest in peace, man. The family and friends.
Only 52 when they filmed 90210.
Yeah, that's true. Wasn't that what the Gabby? She was like 38, right, when they filmed that?
Gabrielle Union. Oh, no, not Gabrielle Union. Her name was Gabrielle something. Yeah.
Carderas or something. Or?
I think she played a high schooler, and she was 38 when they were doing that.
Wow,
Sure,
that beats. That's got to be pretty high. Because I before the record, I thought. Because the record for me was I always reference Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. He was like 31 when they filmed that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he was on Speed. He was on the bus. Remember?
Yeah.
Cameron.
We got to be exiting pretty soon, guys. But you heard Magomed Sharapov's name, Walker's name, Sanchez still has gas in the tank. Stamen, tough win over Perez. Shabazian looked good. Chiasson looked good. Cypher's toughed out a tough one against Polyana Viana. In fact, that sent me on a little bit of a spiral there because I usually start off with the underdog, but I thought, I think I'm going to scoop up an easy 25. Instead, I was already down 83.
Oh, that was a big trap.
But anyway, we want to give any love to any of those fighters, at least until we come back in 22 hours and do this again?
Diego Nightmare.
Yes, yeah.
Wow, that was pretty good, man. That was a good performance, and it was kind of sad afterwards to hear Mickey Gall, the stuff that he went through. But, I mean,
what did he go through?
Passed out, he said, while he was cutting weight, stuff like
wow.
that. Now,
wow.
I honestly, like, I don't
he
want to sound like a dick.
He looked pretty chill here when he was here with us.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a dick, but I feel like Diego was just really good that night, man. I really think he was.
Man, I was going to say, George would have guessed that would be the one that I bring up because that was the biggest dog your boy here was on. And if I would have known how the rest of the night would have gone, I would have been on him a lot harder. Man, that's Diego Sanchez and Damian Maia are the two gifts of 2019 as far as betting lines go. Damian Maia at minus 150 over Lyman Good with plus money on the submission props. The Diego Sanchez over 2-1 odds against. I love Mickey Gall and I love what he's doing with it, but guys, he hasn't really fought anybody to get here. He's really an anomaly. I'm not going to say he's not a fight. He is clearly a fighter. He is a badass, and I wish Mickey Gall the best, and I'm sure he's going to learn from this. But if we're just talking about betting, if we're being critical and talking from a betting perspective,
cardio was gone.
You're really going to give a guy like Diego Sanchez a 2-1 odds over a guy that doesn't have knockout power or striking background or showing striking technique.
It looked improved, though,
you know,
from previous fights. But you're right, not enough to compete at 170 consistently like he wants to do.
I mean, we've seen Thiago Santos win scorecards against good strikers who are piecing him up, like Martin Kampmann, just the way that guy fights. I mean, you got to stop Diego to beat him or be a better grappler. And the guy's yet to be submitted, and that was Gall's strength. It just seemed like a really one of those. And I hate to say that after the fact. I get washed like everybody else, folks. But that was a real gift from a betting wise to put that line on it.
I was going to go over the salaries, but it doesn't look like we'll have time. I'm just going to give you guys 6 salaries, and then you guys can react. Jon Jones, $500,000, no win bonus. Anthony Smith, $350,000 for his efforts. Kamaru Usman, $350,000, no win bonus. Tyron Woodley, $500,000 just to show up and compete. Ben Askren, $350,000. He got $150,000 of it as a win bonus, $200,000 to show up. Robbie Lawler, $200,000 as well in the losing effort. Remember, Jones will get pay-per-view cuts, and so will Tyron Woodley. So theirs will be more, and of course, I think Dana White said there's going to be some bonus checks written out.
I liked hearing that, by the way.
Me too.
I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah, we'll discuss all that tomorrow. When we come back, it's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 93. Hopefully you enjoyed the recap, and we're not done. I'm sure there's more to tackle. So keep it locked in. We'll see you in 22 hours. For Josh and Dan and Goes, I'm George. Have a nice evening. Go out there and be a champion.
She was 29 when she filmed.
Was it? Okay. Was she?